All right. Disclosure time. Always disclosure
I'm not in
time.
your chair.
Nope, nope, I'm gonna
Put the
sit
foot
my
rest,
stool.
just foot rest.
No, we're good, we're good. So disclosure time, I'm not an endocrinologist. Physical therapist. All right. Also, announcement, next COPE is going to be on the 14th, not the 21st, because I'm going to be, hopefully, if I can afford it, going to be in Boston, seeing my sister.
I lived there for 2 years.
Did you?
Awesome.
It's a beautiful town. It really is. So next COPE, October 14th. Hey, you know what gravity wants and gravity can have it. October 5th, 14th. So it'll be the second Wednesday. And I'll try to have that posted around too to remind people. All right, so adrenal fatigue. Anybody heard of adrenal fatigue before?
I've heard of it.
Heard of it? Okay. All right, so basically this is something that a lot of doctors, to be completely honest with you, will look at you and kind of go, yeah, okay, you know, that's kind of a fad thing. All right. In a sense, you're going to find more functional medicine doctors, more naturopaths, more nutritionists that are going to treat this more than others. There are two major adrenal issues that often get treatment. One is Addison's disease. You may be familiar with JFK had Addison's disease. That is where your adrenals do not function. Okay. The other one is Cushing's, which is an overproduction of cortisol in the body, and you may have seen people with like kind of a moon face. Again, they look real puffy, that sort of thing. That's Cushing's. That's way too much cortisol, and that gets treated as well. Anything in between, conventional medicine says normal. Okay. That being said, it's not healthy, maybe. Okay, it may be normal to have somewhere in between in terms of your adrenal functions, but it's not the healthiest for you. Okay. First, our adrenal glands, they sit right above our kidneys. They're like these little caps right above our kidneys, and they do an amazing amount of work. They do a lot of work to help maintain the electrolytes in our body. They do a lot of work in terms of just maintaining your blood sugar levels, a whole slew of stuff, okay? I'm actually going to concentrate on two things. One is cortisol, that's the major one, and the other one is the adrenaline, or you may also have heard of it as being epinephrine, okay? Where I start with this is that we have what we call an HPA axis in our body, and this regulates our response to stress. That stands for hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal axis. Okay, the key thing to remember here is that the hypothalamus and the pituitary are in the brain. They're like the CEO and the manager, okay? CEO is going to go, we've got a problem. That problem can be a mental stressor. It can be a physical stressor, like chronic pain or working out too hard. Or it can be something that's what I call a hidden stressor, which is more like a virus, a bacteria, allergies, that sort of thing, okay? All of these things stress us out. All right, the hypothalamus says to the pituitary gland, get everybody working. Okay, we've got a situation. Pituitary gland then starts to say, hold on a second. There's not enough doors to shut. Next time I do that, I'll just call them. Hey, quiet. All right. So where was I? The pituitary gland. He's the main manager, and he's going to send out all kinds of things. He's going to activate the thyroid gland for all the energy that you're going to need, because the thyroid gland is in charge of energy and maintaining body temperature and all of that. But the main one that we're going to talk about today is the pituitary gland also sends information to the adrenal glands saying, we've got a problem, we need to deal with it. Okay. First thing that it does is send via the bloodstream information saying we need cortisol. And we'll talk a lot about cortisol in just a moment, because it is an amazing hormone that does a million things, it seems like. So the body starts to make cortisol in response to this threat. The second thing that it does is via the nervous system, send the fight or flight and the rest, relax, and restore system. It sends that information to the same glands, the adrenal glands, and said, we need adrenaline. We need to get moving. We need this fast energy, okay? All right, cortisol, this hormone makes sure that it gets the blood sugar from your stores, from your fat stores, and from the stores that are in your liver, and gets it into your bloodstream so that you can use it. Okay. Have to have cortisol in order to live. You don't have cortisol, you're done. Okay. Its counterpart in terms of blood sugar is insulin. Insulin is what gets the blood sugar from the blood into the cells. Okay, so cortisol gets the sugar moving, insulin gets the sugar where it needs to go. Okay, that makes some sense. All right, the other thing that it does is it gets hormones from the bloodstreams into the cells where they're needed. So it lets insulin take over for the sugars, but then it starts to take over for the hormones, making sure that the hormones get where they need to go. It acts kind of like a key in the lock for each individual cell. Okay. It regulates sleep-wake cycles, and this is something that we'll talk about when we talk about the symptoms that you may have from adrenal fatigue. Cortisol is supposed to spike in the morning about 6 or 7 o'clock. Okay, that is your internal coffee maker. It wakes you up. Okay, and from there, from that spike, it's going to kind of slope down all day long. And as it slopes down, melatonin. Everybody take melatonin supplements? Melatonin's supposed to come up. Okay, so if your cortisol is up there all the time, your melatonin is not going to come up. It's going to stay down. So it's like a seesaw. Whenever one is up, the other one's down. Okay, so if your cortisol is up when it shouldn't be at the end of the day, you're going to have a heck of a time getting to sleep. Sound me familiar, guys? No, not at all. Okay. It controls inflammation. So cortisol also does this thing where it turns off most of your healing issues, because if you're fighting a bear, you really don't need to be healing from the flu, right? And it starts to get ready all of the things that are gonna be needed after you're done fighting the bear. Hopefully that you've survived. Okay, so it's getting all of those. I think of it in terms of like if somebody calls a code orange or whatever it is they call it now in the ER, where they kind of triage everybody that can wait, and the rest of the staff is getting all of the supplies ready for this mass casualty event, right? So that's what cortisol does. When it spikes in your body, it's getting ready for everything to do this. Melatonin, on the other hand, helps everything. It increases your inflammation and helps you heal. Okay, so this is why you do most of your healing at nighttime, hopefully.
So wait a minute, so increased inflammation actually heals, that's when your body's healing in the healing mode?
Yes, inflammation, when done right,
Okay.
is basically your construction zone. Okay, it's got all of the tools and everybody necessary, all the workers there in the construction zone that are doing all the healing. Cortisol is going to help break down everything that doesn't belong there, that's old and bad, and waste materials, and take them away. Okay.
So they're the dump trucks.
So they're the dump trucks in a sense. Okay, and the inflammation itself is just that congestion that happens when you've got a big healing thing going on. So when you get injured, the inflammation's a good thing. And in fact, they're starting to say that you putting ice on a new injury, not good. Don't want to do that. Because the body actually kind of knows what it's doing.
Okay.
Okay. The reason I tell people to put ice on stuff is if it feels better. If it allows you to get up and move and do a little bit more, then put some ice on it, that's fine. But for the most part, inflammation is really, it's a good thing.
So why do they tell you to take anti-inflammatories for certain things? You don't have to answer this now.
No,
because
that's
at the end
a
of
good,
it's like kinda-
question.
I don't want to break your.
The inflammation, no, that's fine. The inflammation, part of the problem is if you look around our world right now, we're very sick. especially in the United States, we're a very sick population, and so we have this inflammation that has gone absolutely bonkers. Okay?
Okay.
And so it can help kind of take down that inflammation a little bit. It kind of maybe slows down the work a little. But because we have so much inflammation in our bodies right now anyway, a majority of us who are dealing with a number of issues, that can just kind of help dampen down that issue a little bit.
Okay, so it's sort of a short term.
It's a very short-term thing, yes. And in fact, it's just, honestly, if it helps you to move better while you're healing, that's okay. All right? You have to be able to move in order to heal. Otherwise, your body's going to heal you in a stuck position, and our bodies are made to move. So you have to move a little bit, okay? And we can talk a little bit, if people are curious, a little bit about some of the guidelines for moving when you have either chronic pains or new injuries or whatever, okay, flare-ups, that sort of thing. We can talk a little bit about that. So the cortisol helps to control inflammation. It helps break down unneeded cells, and it stores energy, okay? Storing energy is, we normally are supposed to have it right, just this nice little layer that's underneath our skin, okay? That's not where we keep most of it, right? We keep most of it right here. So I was reading this book, and he had the greatest metaphors, and for you guys that know me know that I love metaphors because it helps me to understand and put things to where they belong. And I didn't even check to see if I'm even in the film, or
it might be
it might be right
I
on
think
Steve,
it's
to be
Steve
honest
Miller.
with you. I don't know. Is this even still on? Okay, good. I want to do that.
You do great
I can mouth
metaphors.
it.
You do great metaphors.
So this metaphor was
Paint a
that
picture.
the fat cells that are underneath your skin, the subcutaneous fat, the stuff that is considered quote unquote healthy fat, is like your 401k. Okay? It is, we're saving it for later. The stuff that's right here, the visceral fat, the stuff that's around your organs, that's the money underneath the mattress. Okay?
I wish I had that much money under.
Right, I know. Right? So what happens, a lot of times, we have this problem where food security, in terms of, caveman days on up to even just, the 1960s even, food security, knowing where your next meal is coming from, never happens when things are going south. Okay, if one thing is bad, chances are your food security is also going to be a problem. So we have this craving for high calorie foods, for easy to access calories, and then it gets stored right here under the mattress where we can use it right when we need it. Okay, problem is most of us have some food security, somewhat. Okay, we have.
Yes, we do. I hope you brought more for everyone.
I was gonna say, yeah. Did you bring for everybody, or you just have dessert there? All right. So cortisol does all these things. It gets the blood sugar out. It stores your energy. It makes sure that your hormones get to where they need to go. It regulates your sleep-wake cycles. It's amazing. This one chemical does all of this. All right.
I take hormone replacement therapy, and if I'm not on the right level, do you think that would throw off the cortisol levels somehow?
It might, and I'll explain here in a little while. The cortisol, well, I'll explain it right now. So what happens, cortisol, you have to have it in order to survive. Okay, you must. And you don't really need your sex hormones, like your estrogens, you don't really need all the rest of those in order to survive, okay? So if you're running low on cortisol, it's gonna steal from everywhere else to make the cortisol, okay? And so it steals the precursors usually for that hormone replacement.
What do you mean by precursors, like your sleep?
No, I mean like the amino acids, the protein building blocks that are in your blood that are made into these various hormones. It's going to steal those away.
Okay.
All right. Hormone replacement, I can talk to you a little bit. We talked a little bit last time about some hormone replacement issues that may be dealing with your gut. That may be an issue there, but everybody is different in terms of what they need. But
Exactly, yeah.
all right, so stressors are a lot different than they were even 50 years ago. Okay, we have a whole lot more noise going on in our environment than we ever did before. That's a stressor. Our light cycles are weird. We don't do this normal daytime up and active stuff, and then nighttime everything gets dark. We might have candlelight, but then we go to sleep because it's too dark to do anything. Okay, we have iPads, we have computer screens, we have TV screens, we have other lights that are on in our house all the time, not giving our brains the signals that we need to start lowering the cortisol, which gives us the energy to do what we need to do during the day, and increasing that melatonin that helps us to sleep and increases that inflammation so we can heal while we sleep. Okay. Chemicals, I'm sure you all could come up with 1 or 2 chemicals that you come into contact with in your daily life that could be irritating to the body. Number 1 on my list, just because I'm on a rampage right now, is pesticides. Okay, so we have pesticides all the time. We have stuff that they put in our water, which we are now finding out fluoride is maybe not such a good thing to have in our water. Okay,
Nice.
right? Because chlorine. They put chlorine in the water to kill all the bugs, which is good, right? We don't want the bad bugs, but again, that's a chemical stressor in our bodies that we don't necessarily need. And then there's the whole money and food issue. Okay, where am I going to get, when you charge your groceries, you're in trouble because, you just know you're in trouble. Relationships, you add in your own stressors. Everybody's got their own unique set. Relationships, that can mean significant others, that can mean your family members, that can mean the people at work. Money, having enough money from your job, all of the, you make a decent wage sometimes even, and you look at it and you're like, well, where did all that money go? Well, maybe it went to student loans and to insurance for health insurance, ex-wives, all of that stuff, right? Okay. A lot of us have a chronic illness on top of our chronic pain. Of course, most of us here are here because we have chronic pain. Viruses and bacterial infections that can stay hidden for years and years and years, and we don't even know that we have them. One of the things that, I've had a couple of patients who, for probably 10 years, had really bizarre, weird symptoms that they just didn't know where they were coming from. Comes out that they have chronic Lyme. They had Lyme disease probably as a child and never were treated for it, never had major symptoms for it, or that parents thought it was the flu. 50% of people who have Lyme don't remember getting bit by a tick. Okay? And probably only about 10% of people with Lyme actually had that bullseye rash that they talk about.
Right.
So, and there are doctors in this area who will tell you that there is no Lyme in Illinois. I'm here to tell you that there is Lyme in Illinois.
There is.
Okay? So there's just stuff like that. Okay? It can be, and I don't mean to terrify everybody, but when you're looking at a body that is not functioning correctly, we need to really start looking at what are all the stressors. Okay, what is stressing me out? There are some things you can't do anything about. There are some things you can. You can be treated for Lyme. You can take out allergens from your environment for the most part. You can limit your exposure to some of those things. So, whatever. Food sensitivities and allergies, I just mentioned those. Those are big these days. People are allergic to a whole lot more, and I'm really thinking that probably part of the reason for that is that we live high stress lives, our resistances are down, and we're exposed to so many more chemicals than we normally have been. 40 years ago, you never heard about somebody with a peanut allergy. Now we all know at least one person with a peanut allergy. Okay, it's crazy, but so
Well, they were dead.
huh? Right, maybe.
40 years ago, they just died.
Who knows? Anybody else come up with any other stressors that you can think of?
Doctors who don't believe you.
Doctors who don't believe you. Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. Family members who don't believe you.
Mm-hmm.
You know. Anything else? Okay. Well, that covers quite a range, but you could probably start digging through your own life, coming up with things that are chronic stressors. So we have this. What do they do with it? Here it is. Okay. So the one of the books that I got some of this information from was called the Adrenal Reset Diet. It's by Alan Christensen, and really he's talking mostly in terms of weight loss. Okay. Because I know at least 5 people off the top of my head who have gone down to below 1,500 calorie diet, are exercising their buns off, and cannot lose weight. Okay, obviously there is way more to this story than calories in, calories out.
Right.
Okay, and so he noticed this as a doctor. He noticed this issue where people weren't being able to lose any weight. And so he started digging into what is going on with this. And most people have the weight right here, okay? And basically he came up with the whole, let's look at the adrenal gland when it comes to weight maintenance. And so he says, we have a stressor. That stress leads to the dysfunction of the adrenal glands, raising cortisol levels. Yes?
Can you tell me the name of this book again?
Yeah, the Adrenal Reset Diet.
So we can actually
the
reset
author?
this, huh?
That's what he claims.
Author is who?
Alan, 1L,
Okay.
A-N, Christensen, S-O-N.
Thank you so much.
No worries. And he basically says that, okay, so when you're under stress, cortisol levels come up because it's like our coffee. We need extra energy to deal with what we're dealing with, okay? And that brings in extra sugar, that brings all of this stuff. Well, we start craving sugar, fat, and salt because nothing, food security does not happen when bad things are happening, right? Okay, so we start craving this stuff. And interestingly enough, I swear I'm going to stop doing these code meetings because every time something happens to illustrate what I'm trying to do. So I know that any physical therapist watching this is going to cringe when I say this, but I threw my back out a week and a half ago. Okay, really what I did was I sprained it. Okay, but it felt like I threw it out. Okay, it felt like it was way over there and it hurt like a son of a gun. All right. Anyway. I've been doing so well limiting sugar, okay? I mean, just once or twice a day, just a little tiny bit, and usually it's along with something that's out and that's actually good for you, like ginger or, chocolate, like dark chocolate, that sort of thing. I mean, really good. I went through my entire stores in one day here because I just couldn't, and I was in pain, and I think my brain and my body were, first of all, I need to feel better. What makes me feel better? Sugar. It gives you that initial reaction. But also, food security doesn't happen when things are going south. So, like, I need to make sure that I have energy to get through however many days of this I'm going to get.
I'm sorry.
No.
What do you mean by food securities?
Being able to know where your next meal is coming from.
Okay.
So just being secure in where your food is.
Okay.
And being able to
That's what I
access it.
said.
Which kind of entails like your living situation.
Right,
and
and
kind of
money
whole-
and-
The money,
whole
food,
thing.
yeah, all of
Okay.
it.
Gotcha.
All of it,
Makes
okay.
sense.
So, if I can't work, I don't get a paycheck, I can't go to the grocery store, I can't buy food. Well, obviously, that never, consciously I didn't go through that play in my head, but there's the part of my brain that's responsible for my survival that says, oh crap, you need calories, girl. So I started, really, I just.
So it's unconscious, it's just a kind of a physical thing.
Yeah,
So
you
just
crave
like
it.
crave sugar.
Yes. Yes. So we wonder,
So is it good to actually feed that, or?
yes and no.
Okay.
We want quality carbohydrates.
Okay.
Okay. which we'll go over here in a minute. But I loved it. He said in his book, here's a clue on whether it's a quality carbohydrate. It's not if it comes in a box.
That's not fun.
If it's
I know, right?
What a bag.
I'm thinking ho-hos. That's pretty quality, right?
So my Reese's peanut butter cup was okay then.
Right. Well, yeah, this is not a hard and fast rule. Anyway, so the abdominal fat, also, we start to put on this abdominal fat when we're under stress, okay? Crazily enough, the abdominal fat makes its own cortisol. Ouch, right? Okay, so then there's poor energy production because fuel, instead of being used to run from the bear or fight the bear, is being stored away because 90% of our stressors in this world are not fighting somebody. They are, well, even if it's just an argument, there's still that ongoing stress of how am I going to come to an agreement with my husband about how we spend this paycheck, or how am I going to get my boss to understand that I really need to be at home with my kids today. That sort of thing, it's an ongoing issue. These stressors that we have, they aren't, 5 minutes and they're over, either you're dead or you survive. There are these long-term stressors that go on, and especially if you have chronic pain, hello, there's a huge one right there. You're living with it day to day. You're getting that constant up cycle of that cortisol. So there's poor energy production because your fuel is being stored instead of burned. Okay. Then the fatigue and health changes can create depression. Okay. Then depression adds more stress.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have this stress cycle where we start to really pack on pounds, and I can't tell you how many people come in here for physical therapy and they say, I know I would feel better if I would lose weight. I know half my problem with my back is that I'm fat. And I'm like, great, well, how are you going to do that if you can't move because you're in too much pain, for one. For two, your stress situation is causing a situation in your body where you are going to pack on the pounds because your body's afraid that it's not going to have enough food and calories to sustain you because of your injury or illness. So you're kind of fighting a double-edged sword.
I should be a will. All right,
so we have this, what happens to you when you have this chronic stress. Some symptoms that, this is from the book, The Adrenal Reset Diet. I have a bunch of them over here that you can pick up on your way out. They have, this is a quiz that you can take, rate, 1 to 3. How do you feel about this particular thing? They have things like, do you have anxiety, depression, frequent urination? Are you fidgety? Is it hard to concentrate? Those kinds of things. Check, 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 check. Yes, exactly. And then you add it all up and it tells you how bad off you are. And then you can add more stress because oh gosh,
I'm not taking that.
Anyway, this is a quick thing that he had in his book. Obviously, he has way more. He's got an entire chapter based on each one of the stages that we're going to talk about here in a minute of adrenal fatigue and how you can actually address it. We want to be thriving, which is our normal response to stress. We have energy, we're enthusiastic, we wake up in the morning without the alarm, we don't necessarily forget the coffee because we don't need it. I know this is sounding completely alien to most of you, but it can happen. It really can. We go to sleep without sleep aids, we have a good night's sleep, we wake up in the morning feeling like we've actually slept, so on and so forth. Okay, so that's where we want to be, okay? And this here shows, okay, so if we are stressed, the level 1, this is how we're going to feel, this is how other people are going to see you, your sleep is impacted or not impacted, so on and so forth. This is along with that quiz that I have, so you can pick this up at the end, okay? All right. Stage 1, this is just mild chronic stress or the beginning of chronic stress, okay? You're going to feel fatigue. You may feel like your heart is beating faster than it used to. kind of an increased heart rate. You may have headaches, stomach pain, bowel changes. Everybody has their own different bodily manifestations of stress. So, you know, if you're going to go and you're doing that high school presentation and you have a headache the whole day, you're probably going to get a headache during this stage. You're going to probably battle more headaches. That being, you know, if you have more things like stomach pain or bowel changes, you may experience more of those things. Okay. People complain of muscle pain, sweating, and dizziness as well during this, and that's just that kind of adrenaline, that increased energy, that little fidgety kind of, I've got a little bit more than I know what to do with right now. Stage 2 is where probably most of us are, if not stage 3, okay? This is where your energy levels are inconsistent. We have backwards energy peaks. So like the morning I cannot get out of bed, and at night I cannot go to bed. I cannot get to sleep. Okay, these are all backwards. You have that 3 p.m. where you're about to die. Okay, you feel like you could just crawl under the desk somewhere and fall asleep. This is also where if you have any issues with blood sugar, you probably are going to feel it here. I have always been a little bit hypoglycemic as a kid. You know, my parents would, not diabetic, but just would run low on blood sugar, okay? When I was in this period of adrenal fatigue, I remember one morning I was by myself, my husband was out of town. I did nothing different. I got up on Saturday, I did nothing different. I ate my normal breakfast. At about 10 o'clock, I crashed. There was no reason for it. I crawled into the kitchen, I pulled open a can of peaches, I drank the peach juice and ate like half the peaches, took my blood sugar, and it was 40.
That's too low.
Okay, that terrified me. Absolutely terrified me. Because for whatever reason, my cortisol went boop, and my insulin went, we got to get rid of it. I don't know what happened, but it was just this cortisol thing. It's just up and down and up and down, and the blood sugar is just all off, and it was nuts.
So that was stress that did all that?
I have no idea. It was a Saturday morning. There was nothing happening. I hadn't gotten a call for that. I had a very stressful job. I hadn't gotten a call from work. Wasn't really expecting a call from work. I didn't do anything different that morning. I had the same breakfast I had every morning that usually lasted me until at least noon or a little beyond. I have no idea what happened. Have no clue. But the only thing I can figure is something with this cortisol, insulin stuff happened, and I bottomed out. Okay, big clue. There is something going on. Okay. As you could probably imagine, after that, I actually gained a whole lot of weight because I ate every 2 hours, whether I was hungry or not, because I didn't want to go back to crashing. And it took another 2 years, at least, for me to figure out that I don't have to eat all the time anymore, that things have leveled out, that I'm doing better. But it took a long, long time for me to figure that out. You may wake at night with this stage. So when you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and you're wide awake and you don't have any clue why, probably that was your blood sugar bottoming out and your cortisol went way up to release more blood sugar in your system, and that's your coffee pot. So hey, I'm awake. Now what? Okay. There is some information out there that says that it may be fairly normal for us to have 2 sleeps, especially in like long winter hours. There was some studies, if you go way back into like the 1500s, they have long, long nights. It was actually fairly typical for people to wake up around midnight, go visiting friends, do prayer, meditation, hang out, read, whatever, and then go back to sleep a couple of hours later, stoke the fire, that sort of thing. This is a little different. This is like, I'm wide awake. What the heck? I have 4 more hours to sleep. What in the world? Like, and then you get mad because you can't fall back asleep again, and you know that you're going to be a complete bear and nobody's going to even be around you. I was telling a coworker last night, in fact, I figure beauty sleep is all about the internal beauty, the pleasant disposition. That's nothing to do with what I look like on the outside. It's whether or not people can tolerate being around me or not. All right. Stage 3, and this, there's more that goes with stage 3, but basically this is where your body pulls an all stop. This is the body says no. You're not going anywhere. You're not getting out of bed. You do not have the energy to do this. You do not have the energy to do that. You cannot bear. You have really bad depression. You can't do anything. Okay? People at this point lose their jobs. Okay? People have major issues going on at this point. Okay? And I've been there too. Okay? This is a period of time where, you know, it was all I could do to climb the stairs, to go to the bathroom in the morning, and then I would take a nap on the couch because that was it. That was all I could do. Okay? All right, so the quick and dirty of this is that we start to, you know, people have this vision of our adrenal glands, you know, they're drying up like a prune or whatever. That's really kind of not what happens. It happens a little bit higher up the chain, and there's more to that goes on in terms of what could be wrong and what could be causing all of this. This is why I went over all of the stressors before, because what we need to do is to try to look at our stressors and say what is necessary and what is not. If this means saying, I'm sorry, sis, I can't talk to you on the phone more than once a year, and only then on my terms, and then have somebody get me and say, Timmy's in the well, okay, you know, so that I have to hang up, that's fine. Okay, you have to take care of yourself. All right. So what can we do? We check for the hidden stressors. You also want to rule out, there's a lot of things that can mimic this, which is things like your thyroid. Interesting tidbit about the thyroid, because cortisol is so important in getting hormones into your cells, if you don't have enough cortisol, you may have plenty of TSH, you may have plenty of T3, plenty of T4. If you've had all these tests done and your blood levels are normal, you still may be having the issues because you don't have the cortisol to get it to the cells where it needs to go. Okay, so it may not actually be a thyroid issue. Your doctors may check you for thyroid, but if you don't have that thyroid hormones that get into the cells to make sure that the energy production is working right, you may still have those same symptoms. Okay, so make sure you're digging a little deeper. All right. It can also be things like anemia, you know, diabetes, chronic Epstein-Barr virus, chronic Lyme, kidney disease, heart disease, mold allergies, or sick building syndrome. Interesting thing about sick building syndrome is that probably only about 1 out of every 10 person is going to actually be affected by the sick building. So you could be the only person in your office that actually has a problem with it. Okay, right? Okay. So, and the whole thing is if a building has ever had water damage, there's a pretty big possibility that you've got mold. Okay, and this is something that a lot of people, I just listened to a podcast on this a little while ago, and this is something that a lot of people really don't want to look at, because it means leaving their job, or it means walking out of your house, locking the door, and starting all over again, leaving everything behind. Okay, I mean, you can take your clothes and have them washed, but pretty much everything else, all your books, all your furniture, everything else needs to go.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So this is, I mean, it's a really big, but if you are having this sort of reaction to it, and you are that sick, where you've got the headaches and you can't move, and you've got this adrenal problem stuff going on, and you've got all this, you know, muscle aches and pains and all of that stuff going on, and you figure out it's mold, you know what?
And we don't open our windows anymore.
No, we don't open our windows anymore. You know, so there's, and so if you think that that might be an issue, there are some resources that I can share with you on that afterwards. But that is a whole other issue in and of itself. But mold can be a really big deal. And the thing that's really scary to me is that our building supplies are often sitting out in yards where it rains. You know, so we've got this lumber sitting out there in these yards, and it rains, and they get moldy, and then they put them in the house, and you know they're halfway done with the house, and we get a rainstorm, and they just keep building. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, so you don't necessarily know, even if it's a new structure. So, and again, I think this is partly because we're exposed to so many chemicals. Our bodies are so sensitized to things, because we're exposed to so many chemicals that now we're having issues with mold and other stuff, more allergies. Right. What else could it be? Nutrient deficiency, it could be sleep apnea. So, you know, do your due diligence, have these things checked out too, okay? It could be more than one of these things, these stressors happening with you, okay? Carve out time for self-care. Okay, this is probably one of the hardest things. I have noticed that people that have chronic pain have a tendency to be caretakers. They are where they are because we put ourselves up last. Okay?
Why do we do that?
Why? I don't know. We're people pleasers.
If we're hurting, we should take care of ourselves.
Well, yes, we should. Yes, we should.
Not with everybody else.
Right?
You know.
Very good. He's on the way to healing, guys. But, you know, carve time out for yourself. Resting, making sure you have some laughter in your day, daily, okay? If that means going on to YouTube and watching, you know, people do scorpion. You know what a scorpion is? Or you have your feet, you may do a face plant, your feet come in, hit you in the head, that's a scorpion. You know, if you're gonna watch people do that, that might hurt you more. That you may look at that and go, oh, ow. But if it, you know, there's some good comedies, you know, places, there's you know, just finding some time for laughter. Meditation, big one on that. Eating better. Look, it can just, I started with breakfast. Okay, way back when I had so much chronic fatigue and so much, you know, my adrenals were completely burnt out. I had no, you know, ability to do anything. And so I joke with people, and I'm half serious, I reparented myself. Okay, I'm like, at this point, I'm an infant. What does an infant need? It needs food, it needs sleep. It needs love and care. It needs to be clean. Those were my only priorities. I was very blessed that I have a husband who's understanding and kept working and said, it's okay, hon, and never made me feel terribly guilty about it. But I still felt guilty about it because I wasn't contributing. Like I, you know, he'd work all day, come home, cook dinner, do the dishes, and I'd be sitting on the couch going, I'm watching my 6th Buffy rerun today. You know, I mean, it was, you know, so, but start with breakfast. And we'll talk a little bit about what Mr. Christensen says about breakfast, but start with, you know, a very simple meal at the beginning of the day, making sure that you've got that in, okay? Once you've got that done, work on lunch. Once you've got that done, work on supper. Work on healthier snacks. I mean, it doesn't really matter, just baby steps to start with. You know, at the adrenal crash level and really at stage 2, you almost don't have the energy to do much more than what you're already doing. So baby steps, okay? Making a sleep routine. You know, this is one that everybody says, but now you know why it's important. Because the cortisol has to come down at night.
How do you get that to?
Partly by conditioning your body and your brain to understand that sleep is coming. So when you have this sleep routine, then things are kind of, you know, in the back of your head. It's like Pavlov's dog. You ring the bell, the dog drools. The back of your head is going, oh, when she takes a shower, we know sleep is coming soon. So we're going to start ramping up melatonin. We're going to start decreasing the cortisol, that sort of thing. So having some kind of a routine that you do every night before you go to bed,
Okay.
you know, getting your stuff ready for tomorrow, whatever it is that you do, it doesn't really matter. It could be, you know, saying prayers. It could be, you know, it could be an hour's worth of stuff. It doesn't matter, just as long as, you know, you have this routine, stick to it, try to make sure that those, You're going to bed similar times every night. Okay? All right. Work on being assertive with your needs. This one is really, really difficult, but it's really important because one of the things about stress, if we talk about stress as defining it as any threat to or lack of something imperative to your survival, that can be relationship stability, okay? That can be job stability. That can be any kinds of these stabilities. And so if you have an issue or a problem and you ignore it, okay, a couple of things happen. One is we have the pressure cooker. Some of us are a pressure cooker. We just, blow up and explode all over everybody, okay? The other thing that happens is that even if you're doing a fairly decent job of ignoring the problem, there is an entire section of your brain that is dedicated towards monitoring that stressor. So if you're assertive with your needs and say, look, this is what I need, even if you don't get it, your brain says, oh, she's already taken care of this problem. I don't need to monitor for that anymore. Okay? Decreases the stress level. All right? Adrenal supplements. Now, I have this like a bunch of stars because I had intended to look up more supplements that are available out there. There are a ton of them. Mr. Christensen, in his book, talks about that there are some of these supplements that, great for adrenal fatigue, and they've got this and that and the other thing. They've got like 3 or 4 different supplements in there that are supportive to your adrenal glands, that kind of help support your constitution, help you support the way that you deal with stress. Problem is, some of them ramp things up and some of them squash things down. So he was saying that there's one called ashwagandha, and then there's another one, and I can't remember what it was. He said you want to take this other one in the morning to help with the cortisol, but take the other one at night to help dampen the cortisol. So some of them it's like taking a speedball. You're just kind of,
Right.
both up and down at the same time. So some of these kind of watch for if you're going to take those supplements, okay? And also be sure to check with pharmacy because they can check herbs versus drug interactions as well, okay? Also, I think drugs.com and rxlist.com does a nice job of those too. Okay. Adrenal reset diet recommendations. I'll go over that here in just a minute. I meant to put that one last. Exercise. All right, so a lot of us aren't probably exercising very much because we're in. That being said, if you know somebody who is one of these people who you think may also have adrenal issues, who may be crashing, but they're the marathon runner, okay? The questions that you want to ask yourself after any workout: could I do the whole thing again? Okay? And if not, it's too much, all right? And the other question is, do you feel energized afterwards, or do you feel like crap? If you feel energized afterwards, that's good. If you feel like crap after a workout, it's too much. Okay? All right? We're talking about when we do workouts, we oftentimes access our fight or flight, especially if they're high intensity workouts. Okay? So we're accessing fight or flight, which can be good if you feel good afterwards, because it can utilize all of that fight or flight system stuff that your body's been pumping out because of the chronic stress. Okay? But it can also wear it out faster. It can also tap into those very limited resources that you have. So you want to pay attention to how do you feel after a workout, okay? And that's actually really, true for chronic pain folk too, okay? You should feel better after doing your exercises, even if it's just laying doing, some knee bends or some, tummy tucks or whatever. You should feel better, okay? The last thing, chronic pain, help, if that's one of your stressors. The 2 things that I feel like you're in over your head, find somebody to explain it to you. I'm more than happy to explain it to anybody, okay? Pretty much, the more you know about what exactly is happening in your body, the less uncertainty you have, which uncertainty in and of itself is a stressor.
Yeah.
Okay, so the less uncertainty you have about what's happening back there in your back or in your whole body, the lower the stress goes. The other thing is you find out what your body should be capable of and what it's not capable of. Okay, so even with a disc bulge, a healthy body should be able to lift X number of pounds. Okay, now obviously if you've been on the couch for 4 years because of back pain, your body's not going to be healthy enough to lift that 50 pounds today. We're not going from couch to marathon in 3 days. You still have to build it up. But if you learn what is okay for your particular diagnosis and what's not, you can start to work in baby steps again about what you can do, okay? The other thing to do is to learn about how pain works, okay? Pain, and this is something that I talk a lot about, but pain is not as simple as something's broken, fix it, pain goes away. It is not that simple. Okay, if it were that simple, none of us would be here, right? If it were that simple, we wouldn't have docs looking at you going, it must be in your head. I get people on my table and they, I get my hands on them and their muscles are spasming like crazy, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but you don't make this up.
Yeah.
Their skin is thicker than an elephant hide. You don't make that up. These are changes that happen with lack of blood flow, with all kinds of stuff. So learning about how pain works and how other stressors can impact how much pain and suffering you are involved in, that can really help as well. That is the number one intervention for pain relief, is education. Okay, not pills, not surgery, not physical therapy, education. Knowing what's going on and knowing how your body works, okay, does so much to relieve the anxiety and the suffering and all that comes with the pain.
That's where you're coming in.
That's what I try to do.
That's what
That's
you're
where
doing.
my passion is, okay, is to get people to understand what's going on. Don't fear it, okay, because the more you fear it, the less you want to move. The less you want to move, the worse you feel, okay. All right, so the last thing, the adrenal diet reset, I fell asleep. Wow, okay, so if I'm sitting here, okay, anyway, the adrenal reset diet, okay, basically if you're really, really interested in this, go ahead and, get the book from the library or come and talk to me, but the basics of it is, and this is gonna freak everybody out because it seemed completely backwards to me. Protein in the morning, carbs at night. Okay?
But you can't do that if you're diabetic. I have to do the stress and I have to divide mine up.
Yeah, well, there's you get protein and fats at every meal in this
Yeah.
reset diet, okay? And the carbs are not sugar, they're not high fructose corn syrup, it's not, that sort of thing. It is high quality carbs, like
Right.
beans, whole grains, potatoes, sweet potatoes, that sort of thing, okay? And he's got a whole chart in there on, that can help you to identify which carbs are better and which carbs are worse, so that, in terms of how quickly they get stored here versus how quickly they get to your energy levels, okay? All right, so the basics, you get your protein in the morning. That'll actually increase your cortisol a little, okay? When it's supposed to be up in the morning so that you can get through your day, all right? You add a little bit more carbs in the afternoon at lunchtime so that your cortisol starts to dip a little bit, melatonin starts to come up. You know how you feel after Thanksgiving dinner?
Yeah.
Carbs. What a carb-loaded meal is that? I mean, you have the stuffing, you have the mashed potatoes, you have the noodles and sauce, you have the corn, the corn casserole, you have the pie, you have the, what a carb, I mean, that is totally a carb-loaded meal, other than the turkey, right? For the most part. Okay. So, that's what made me think, okay, maybe this does make a little bit of sense, okay? And then at night, a few more carbs, okay? And he has portion sizes and all of that stuff in his book, okay? But the way I figure it is that even if you don't get the book, try a little protein in the morning. Try a little extra protein in the morning. Make sure you're getting a little protein at every meal, okay? And he likes paleo. This author does like paleo, in that it encourages people to, eat fresh foods, eat whole foods, that sort of thing. Paleo does say absolutely no legumes, no beans, and he's like, you know what? Beans aren't that bad for you. Beans are actually pretty good for you.
Well, they're a lot of protein.
They're a lot of protein, they're a lot of fiber, and they're a really good source of healthy, quality carbohydrates.
Yeah,
So, and the paleo people talk about there's a chemical within the bean that blocks your absorption of, I don't know, iron or something. He says, you know what? That's already taken into account when you look at the thing that they put on the label. Yeah. You can tell the hour's almost up. I'm losing words. So I mean, that's already kind of taken into account. Okay. The only difference with that is if that's a food sensitivity for you, then you may not be able to use that as a, So there's some detective work to do. Okay. There are places in town that will do this, that will help you with this. You can take cortisol swab. None of the cortisol tests are perfect. Okay, you can do a urine test. That's only once. Okay, that only tells you kind of how much it's been in the last hour or so. You can do a saliva swab. That tells you kind of right now. Okay, usually they have you do that about 4 times a day to see what happens to your levels throughout the day. It should peak up and kind of slope down like that. Some people it's up all over the place. Other people, goes down and then spikes up. And so that can change quite a bit to indicate if there's an issue or not. And the other one is a blood test that you can do. Again, that only really shows what's there right now.
Yeah.
And the other thing about the blood test is having a needle stick can increase your cortisol. So most practitioners really do like the swab test better because it's the least invasive. You can tell the patient, take it home, check it at 8 in the morning, at noon, at 4, and at 8 in the evening, and see where you're at. Okay. There are a couple places in town that will do this. I believe that most compounding pharmacies are doing this now. So I think like Prick Shot does it. I think Essential Wellness does it. Life Plus MD does it. Little plug for interest of disclosure. One of our doctors does Life Plus MD. But that can all help. I'm not sure how much of that is actually covered by insurance. So some of that maybe needs to be out of pocket. Okay. But on the other hand, if it gives you some insight on what all's going on in your body and how to make it feel better, we have chronic pain. We don't need adrenal fatigue and, food sensitivities and allergies and, whatever else on top of it all. Okay? Because those things can also then make the pain feel worse. Can ramp that up.
I'm gonna have to watch this one like 3 times. You're giving us a lot of good information.
There is quite this is a lot of information, and I tried to pick out
You only started preparing late.
Well,
Thank goodness.
that's last right. Well, I don't know, because I might have picked out better information, but I started reading and looking into this about a week and a half ago, but I only started writing my outline of what I was going to talk about last night. So, anyway, yes, ma'am.
I'm assuming just from the conversation that these are posted online.
Yes, they are.
How do you access those?
Okay. We didn't get the last one up on IRB website, but if you go to YouTube, it's Dr. Morgan Aurora.
How do you spell that, please?
How do I spell that? Aurora. Is that right? Aurora? Yeah. And that's my station. So I've got a few others up there. That's my station channel, whatever. Gives you my age. Don't touch that dial. You can also, I believe, get it from, if you Google Ann Alton, Peoria, Illinois. I think you get it.
That's what I got, yeah. It changes. Sometimes you can get it and sometimes you can't. Because then I tried again and then I couldn't get it.
Yeah, I don't know, Google got in trouble for always putting the same thing on top, so they're making them cycle through the answers that they get.
Okay, okay, all right, I see. 'Cause
So-
yeah, okay.
Anyway.
Might be lower on the list.
Huh?
It might be lower on the list.
So it might be lower on the list.
It's gotta go a little further.
I was gonna ask you more about, my mom has pretty much arthritis all throughout, hips, and I'm telling her, I'm like, you need to take anti-inflammatories. That's why I was asking you about that.
Mhm.
But I don't know if your doctors have said that, Mom, have they said anything about it?
Here's my generic response, okay? First of all, I'm not internal medicine, so I really don't know a whole lot about prescribing medication. Keep that in mind.
I was thinking like ibuprofen.
Okay. Ibuprofen, I don't see major harm in it in terms of every now and then if it helps you to get up and move. Arthritis is one of those things that you have to move in order to feel better, okay? You're gonna wake up feeling like Sasquatch and once you get up out of bed and get stretched out and whatever else, you feel better. Maybe not great, but better, okay? If you gotta have that anti-inflammatory to help with that, that's probably okay. That being said, remember what anti-inflammatories do to your gut.
Right, that's
Okay.
what, yeah.
And remember, that a lot of the NSAIDs are hard on the kidneys. So, because that's where they're filtered. So if you have any kidney issues or your family has kidney issues, you're gonna wanna be careful about it. If you find yourself taking it for more than just a couple of weeks, talk to a doctor about what is appropriate for me to take.
Right.
How much is appropriate for me to take? Is there something else that may be better? Okay. You can also add things like turmeric and ginger to meals to spice up your food.
Those are good.
That can help decrease inflammation overall.
Okay, so like a turmeric and ginger.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them. I mean, there's a ton of them
Okay.
that really, those are the two that come up off the top of my head, because
Right.
they're my favorites.
Those are good ones, I like those, I
So,
like those a lot.
yeah.
So, okay, that's what I was,
And the other thing that's gonna take down your inflammation is decreasing your stress. Because
she has a lot of stress. She's a person who doesn't say no to you, so she doesn't take care of herself.
learn one word, no. I mean, seriously, the word no is so important. And you don't have to, please, everybody know this, you do not have to explain it.
You don't have
Okay?
to come up
The
with an
answer is
excuse.
no. The answer is no.
She drove me here
Okay.
today though, so I can't say much. I'm like, Mom,
Well,
are
thank
you
you.
today?
But, I mean, that's the thing is that you don't have to resist that urge, because as soon as you start to do that, you start to feel like you don't have the right to say it.
That's what some of my sisters tell me that I
People
should
get tired of
say
saying
no.
Yeah, she's,
Huh?
People get tired of hearing it.
People get tired of hearing, well, they can, you know what, you find out who your friends are. I'm gonna be completely blunt.
that's what I tell her.
You
yeah.
find out who your friends are. You find out the people that were willing to stick with you through thick and thin. There are people that I met when I was sick and I started to feel better, and they're like, "Who are you?" Because they didn't know, that I was really kind of, I was the kid in junior high where they were like, "Who's your source?" For the speed. People didn't realize that that's kind of how I was. They met me while I was sick, and the people that fed off of my energy before I got sick, guess what? They are no longer in my life. And that's okay.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
That's okay.
Is it possible for the brain to run out of endorphins?
You can run low on various chemicals in your brain, yes, absolutely. You can run out of the products that your brain uses to make those chemicals. Or your gut. We found out last time that the gut makes a lot of your neurotransmitters, maybe not endorphins necessarily, but it makes a lot of your neurotransmitters. So if your gut is impaired, if the microbiome, the good bugs that are in your gut, if they aren't healthy, then you're probably going to be low on serotonin, dopamine, vitamin B, you know, all of these things that we're taking. Yes, right?
That one
I
will
know.
be up, right? It'll be.
I know. How many people take vitamin B shots?
We gotta go.
Go ahead. Yes, yes.
Me too.
All right.
That one will be up on the link, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that one is one that had a ton of information.
Yeah,
And
the gut one is
the
up
last-
there, but
yeah,
it's not
last
on the Irby
month's-
website. It's just on.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Yes, the copies of the
you.
tests are over here.
Thank you, Anna.
You're welcome.
14.